Welcome back to ATB Reef. I was gone for more than a month. I had several caretakers that came in to look after my fish and corals, but I didn't ask any of them to scrape the inside glass. This led to some pretty severe buildup in both of my tanks. In this video, we'll clear that up. I'll show you the tools that I use and how I clean the tank walls of my two Biocube 32 tanks. Thanks for watching. Let's get scraping. Here are the tools that I'll be using to clean the inside of my tank glass. Each of them does a little bit of a different job, but working together, they get both of my tanks nice and clean. Your tank glass is about 1/4 to 1/3 of an inch thick, so if you place one piece on the inside and use the magnet on the opposite, you can move it around and scrape the inside of the glass without putting your hand in the tank. This is the mag float. As you can see, it has a large surface area for scraping the inside of the tank, both vertically and horizontally. The mag float comes with this attachment with a dull plastic blade on the end that's useful for scraping more stubborn items off of the glass, like coralline algae. This large mag float is useful for thicker glass. The MagFloat Nano is useful for my Biocube tanks. This is really great for detail work because it's very small and very maneuverable. Also, importantly, it has a curve here, which is really handy for the curved glass of the Biocube. Last, I have two different sizes of flippers. This is the larger of the two flippers. The nice part about these is the inside piece will float to the top of the tank if they get disconnected. The reason this is called a flipper is it has two different functions. When connected like this, the blade here, which is made of metal, will contact the inside glass. Turn this around, which you can do without taking it out of the water, and this softer side will contact the inside of the glass, which does more of a scrubbing motion and has no risk of scratching the glass. This larger flipper is a bit too strong for my tanks, although it is still handy for some of the harder to reach areas. This nano flipper is much more maneuverable and a little bit less powerful. This lets me do some detail work. I really don't worry about this scratching the inside of the tank. I go over the same spot over and over again. Links to buy each of these attachments is available in the description. If I'm giving advice to a Biocube owner, I would say to buy the Flipper Nano as well as the MagFloat Nano. If you're going to pick only one, I think you have to go with the MagFloat Nano. And that is the hardest part about having a Biocube and keeping it clean. This is my SPS dominant Biocube 29 tank. In my absence, I didn't want any of the caretakers scraping anything or moving around large magnets. So you can see there's pretty significant algae growth. To start, we'll use the small flipper with the blade side down. We use forward and back pressure to move the blade along the glass, taking care to not move the blade vertically. If you need to change the orientation or the line where you're working, you should do that while pulling backwards rather than forwards, because that is less likely to scratch the glass. Short motions and short strokes can go over a single space many times to eliminate any growth that's found there. It is possible to scrape up and down. This isn't the most effective way to operate, but you might have to reach coralline algae or other algae near the waterline or at the bottom of the tank. With the bulk of the algae removed by the flipper, we can now take the MagFloat Nano to do detail work in this circular motion. Here I am demonstrating how one of the ways that the MagFloat Nano can clean the corners of the tank. It's hard to know why one tank will need more attention on the glass than the next. It certainly has something to do with the tank lighting, also the nutrients in the tank. I think that coralline algae is often the result of high alkalinity, which is something I tried to do in my SPS tank for other coral growth. When we zoom in close, it's easy to see how much the algae obscures our view. Here, I'm working around an electric pineapple acropora. I needed to move it in order to effectively clean along the glass. A little bit more scraping, and it's amazing how much better we can see this beautiful coral after we're done. Sometimes coralline algae will grow even below the sand line. The flipper is pretty handy, especially the edges of it, for flaking off and scraping away coralline algae. Now here I'm demonstrating reversing the flipper so that the brush side is facing down. This can be used in vertical or horizontal orientation to clean the inside of the tank. Moving over to the LPS tank, we need to use the big guns. This is the large size flipper. This tool will be the best at removing these rather significant coralline deposits that are all over the tank and the seemingly very thick algae that's been growing. I'm not sure why this tank experienced such a bloom of algae and coralline growth compared to the SPS tank. The LPS tank does run at higher nutrients. We even need to go down to the sand line and give a very serious scraping to the coralline that's growing there. Here's a close-up of some coralline algae being removed by the heavyweight flipper. Removing coralline is essential. If it got any worse than what you saw here, I'd be relegated to using a hand razor blade to get it all out. Cue the rapid cleaning montage as I get the LPS tank back up to speed. This tank took forever to clean. I didn't try to do a detailed job because I'll be consolidating these two tanks into a new system in the next few weeks. And here's what the SPS tank looked like after it was cleaned. Crystal clear glass and a great view of all those acropora and montipora. Here's a quick look at the tank before we started. Scraping the glass kicks a lot of algae into the water column, which gets caught in your filter sock or filter floss. It's a good idea to change your media when you've done major work in the tank. To help clean up, we take a wet paper towel and wipe down the front of the tank, and then dry it with a second paper towel. Usually no soap is necessary. Sometimes using a glass cleaner is unavoidable. If you do have to use it, be sure you spray downwards and onto your cloth, and then apply that to the tank. Even better, get some pre-moistened wipes, just to be sure no glass cleaner winds up in your tank. The change is even more dramatic in the LPS tank, where we started with this and wound up with this. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.